Welcome, everybody. My name's Chris Netto. This is Rebels and Flux, and today I have Mr. Nic Burton here with me. How are you today, man?
Doing great, Chris. How about yourself?
Doing great, doing great. Rebels and Flux likes to put the spotlight on people that are kind of making a little bit of noise or a lot of noise in the industry, and you have done that. Congratulations on your recent winning or nomination, or I don't know what you want to call it, for CI, Commercial Integrators 40 Under 40 list. That must be a great honor to have as somebody who is a lot younger than I am. Congratulations.
I wouldn't go that far. No, thanks, man. Yeah, it's super humbling and just really exciting when I got that message from our good friend Craig over there via email. I was just really taken aback. There's so many awesome people in the industry that I could think of that deserve that spot, and you know, to have one of those slots there in that 40 is just really just amazing.
Well, welcome to the club, man, because I'm OG first year of it happened.
That's right.
And the one thing that I unfortunately get the little asterisk by my name is you guys get all everybody from my my class on, or can say they have a cover. My grouping, we were just an article inside the magazine, and a lot of us from that class still like to rib Craig about that. But congratulations on the nomination. The way it works for people that are not familiar with CI's 40 Under 40 is not something you apply in person or you nominate yourself for. You're typically nominated by somebody within the industry. And a lot of times the way they're picked, they pick 40 people, but it's obviously the more or the best nominations are the ones that get selected. And myself and Bobby and now you have joined the ranks of the 40 Under 40. Congratulations.
I appreciate it, brother. Yeah, it's just I'm overly thrilled, and it's definitely eye-opening. You know, it's been such a cool journey here, and just to have that. It's just been, like I said, I mean, I can only say it's just been humbling, you know, to be honest. It's just been really
okay.
humbling.
So let's dehumbleize it. Let's talk about what your journey's been. You've been here 5 years, correct, at Starin?
Just about.
Okay, so 5 years at Starin. Where did you start? Did you start at the bottom? I want a good story. I want to, tell me you were pulling cable. That's not the fact. You came in. What were you doing?
Yeah, I came in, and it's hard to say at Starin, like, describe it as the bottom, because I think it's a unique thing about Starin is you come in and you can really see your path here. And, I'll use a quote from that Bill Mullen, our CEO, says often that I have written on my desk here. If it's going to be, it's up to me. Right. And I know he's taken that from a famous author, and I'm just losing that name. But yeah, I came in on this inside sales team, customer experience team, and it was eye-opening just to begin with, just because that was my first venture into the AV world, coming from an audio background, music production, kind of audio engineering side of things. It's been, where I came in thinking I'd understand a lot of it, but it really took a lot of learning. Really, I mean, tons of enablement. I was lucky to have, great leadership and some direct folks that I directly reported to that really helped me along that way. Bobby Swartz, Melissa Dillman, Greg Mack, who is now at Yamaha UC as their sales director. So yeah, started on the inside team. I actually moved to Chesterton from Indianapolis for 6 months, kind of like the proving ground, right? Mm-hmm. So I sat in the bullpen and did all that, and then made my way back to Indy. It's where home is, and started working remotely, and just progressed really quickly into managing a team there pretty quickly, and then into regional responsibilities. So I covered five states surrounding Indiana. That was a really cool way to just get involved locally, and where all my business was mostly within driving distance, and going through that just kind of it offered up the opportunity to really learn about different categories of resellers and integrators and what they're working on, and how to kind of that's what really kind of drove me to what things I like the most, what I really wanted to focus in on. You know, and then I had the opportunity to, after the regional position, to focus on some strategic accounts, particularly in the DMR category. So that was a whole new adventure in itself. And that's
for the listeners at home, can you explain what DMR stands for?
Yeah, direct market resellers, you know, like the CDWs, SHIs of the world.
Excellent.
So directly responsible for those type of accounts with a great team around me supporting those efforts. And it's just been so much fun there just because of the massive potential for growth. It's just always there. And it just, you know, it's cool too. I mean, you think of, you know, in the end, it's like, you know, everything's so relationship driven, you know, and I know we're in that weird phase right now where it's like, you know, we're not shaking hands in person. We're doing this on Zoom, which is as close as you can get to it and provides an amazing experience. But even at working with larger accounts like that, you find when you get in there, you know, it's like for just my insight for those getting into that space or wanting to get into that space, you know, you find that really your success is built within the relationships and the grassroots, you know, that you get in there and you're working with the account executives or, you know, just the sales facing folks. And so that was a huge transformative moment, couple of years in my career, and really what led me into this really key focus on Zoom and the UC category.
We didn't even start by asking what your title is. What is your title at Starin? It's changed a few times, but now, do you have a new title? Do you not? I mean, give us the Zoom version, because I know you, and we've had some other video discussions where we've recorded them about your basically how you are my subject matter expert when all things Zoom at Starin. So I appreciate that. But do I call you my subject matter expert? What should I call you, Nick? That's outside of my buddy. Tell me what it is that I should be calling you.
Probably should have started with that, I guess. It's Zoom Ecosystem Partner Relations Manager. So,
damn, that's a mouthful, man. But
it is
congratulations on having probably the longest business title at Starin. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you know, it's challenging to fit onto a little card, you know. But and what that really means is just managing our relationships within Zoom itself, the team supporting Zoom, our channel partners that are in the Zoom realm, and then the manufacturers there as well. So it's a full gamut of just Zoom support. And yeah, I guess that does kind of force me into that subject matter expert role for you.
We all need one, man. We all need one, because there's a lot of people out there that like to call themselves experts. Considering, you know, currently, look at our current situation. You know, we have gone into a lockdown as a country for the most part. Every state obviously is locked down in a certain way. I'm in New Jersey, and feels like I've been locked down since February at this point. But everybody's a little different and stuff like that. But you know, I am somebody who spends a lot of time, and I work obviously a lot on the LinkedIns and the Twitters and all that sort of jazz, but everybody's an expert. Everybody that got locked down all of a sudden became an expert at all different things of video conferencing. You know, the irony of it, you know, the ongoing joke is that finally, after 22 years of me being in AV, my mom knows what I do, right? Like, she actually uses Zoom in a title when she's like, hey, can I Zoom call you and the kids? And I'm like, oh, man, look at you Zoom calling. You sure you don't want to do a Skype or a FaceTime or a video, as she would just say, because she didn't know what the app was that she was using, or Facebook, whatever. But no, she's down with the whole Zoom thing. And it's obviously we've had some history in our videos where we talked about how Zoom has helped your dad and his business. But you know, the onset of everybody being an expert now, all of a sudden, people telling you how to wear, what to wear, how to dress, how to act on video. This has been, part of our, part of our work for, at least for you, for the last 5 years, for me, for the last 20. And it's so weird to now see all these Zoom experts writing, not necessarily Zoom, but, video experts now telling people. And it's, you'll see it in the New York Times, you'll see it, from the Sun, you'll see it in all different magazines, everybody at Forbes, everybody's writing articles about that. I just find it ironic how finally we're recognized for what we do.
I know, it's interesting. I was on vacation last week, and I was picking up. We're not obviously eating inside anywhere, but I was doing a pickup for the family, and I saw on a paper advertisement for guitar lessons. And a requirement. So virtual guitar lessons requirement Zoom. And I just thought that was really interesting because you would just never see that. In the recent past. And I think the cool thing is too that everyone's kind of all in on this Zoom thing, this UC, this video. The coolest part is the video to me, because I think as if you look back, it's still been used. A lot of these platforms have been used just as almost like a traditional conference phone. Mm-hmm. You don't really see many people on their video, or you see the sticker over their camera or whatever it may be. And I think that's, it's really forced people into, since they can't do that face-to-face thing, it's something that really I don't want to say expected, but it's almost like
what would you say? Okay, because I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, what was the percentage of the people that had their camera on as opposed to post-COVID?
I mean,
if you were lucky, maybe 50%.
Yeah.
50% of the people turned their camera on during even our internal calls. And we've been using Zoom, extensively internally, but we get part of our sales tacticals or any of our meetings, I don't think we had half the people turn on their cameras. And then now that we're in the COVID lockdown stage, I would say about 80% of the people turn on. There's always the handful that obviously it's too early in the morning for some of the West Coast people when we're getting on, or some people are in the middle of. I know that one of our coworkers, Joel Brazy, was in the middle of construction at one point. And yet, he was covered in he had plastic over him.
Yeah,
saying where he didn't want dust getting on his gear. Right. So obviously he didn't turn his stuff on. But from my point of view, and we work for the same company, but we do run in certain circles the same. But you obviously have different meetings than I do for what I do. So what would you say your camera on percentage would be?
I'd say I think 80% is a good one. I mean, what you'll find too, or from my perspective is, you have those leaders at the company, or, and it doesn't have to be a leadership role. It's like, I'm talking as far as someone that's really taken on, like your mom, like she's talking about Zoom and she understands that it's exciting. Like my dad,
mm-hmm.
business on Zoom now, and
yeah,
and those things that we've talked about. But you'll find that if a couple people hop onto the call on video, you'll start to see everyone else kind of pop in on video too. It's like a courtesy almost. And I think, in the end, we've done a really good job at Starin of communicating, I think, on video. And I think we've talked about that process of switching from a different platform onto Zoom, and what that's really done for our internal communication. I mean, Chris, you're out on the East Coast, I'm in Indianapolis, but we're also pretty good friends, and we've really built that relationship via Zoom, talking face to face, on here. And I think those are, everyone, not only just in business but in personal life. I mean, think about it. Everyone wants to FaceTime. It's a really personal experience, like on an iPhone or whatever it may be. When you're having a Zoom meeting with somebody and you're both on camera, I think it's vital to most importantly, if you're speaking to a client, I think you should always be on camera, even if they're not, because it gets you that personal experience. But I think internally as well, you're starting to see that more and more often. So it's definitely been cool to watch. It's like this adoption that's, okay, I got to have a webcam. I got to make sure this is up and running. I'm expected to be on camera. And I think we'll probably start to see more of that, or continue to see more of that as we progress here. No matter if we're in this health crisis or not, I think the power of Zoom and UC all together and video conferencing all together is really had a chance to have the curtain pulled away from it, for the masses. So
I find it amazing because obviously I spend a lot of time on the social side, and when I step out of the AV realm and connect with people that reach out and say, hey, I notice you do technology. Can I ask you a question regarding this, whatever that technology could be? It could be whatever. And I'll answer, it's, what you're actually looking for could be a PTZ camera, right? And, they could be a church leader, a lady that does sound for a small college. And, they recognize the fact that I'm in technology, but then I'm like, listen, it's a lot easier. Instead of going back and forth on DM, I'll send you a Zoom link. Let's meet on Zoom. You know how creepy that would be 3 years ago that I'm like, hey, I want to connect with you on video. Let's talk on video. Whereas now I think the adoption is so there. It's like, well, yeah, I got Zoom on my phone. Let's go.
That is super interesting.
It definitely has changed the paradigm of let's get on video, because getting on video was reserved for a scheduled conference call that you were doing, and you were letting people know that you were getting on video because you were presenting, right? Now the average calls can be done straight up just like this. I mean, we have these calls regardless if I'm recording it for Rebels and Flux or if we're just whatever, doing whatever, just meeting. Our cameras are on and we're having these conversations. Just feels natural, and it feels more normal than anything else. Now we are maybe the exception to the rule because we've been doing this for a while. So for us, and it's part of our gig. But even internally within Starin, convincing our inside team that, hey, your camera can go on and connect with the people that are calling on phones with the purchase orders and get to know them. I see that progression happening, and that's a big shift in mindset. Imagine if call centers now all went to video. Do you want to be seen on a call center, on video? Do you not want to be seen? But I think that, to be honest with you, it's like you just said, if you see me and I take your order and you, Nick, are from XYZ integration firm and you're calling me because you want to order the latest D10 screen that's out, and I turn on my camera and I'm like, hey, Nick, how are you? How's everything? All of a sudden, these conversations are just going to flow. Right. And the last time you ordered, you told me that you were taking guitar lessons. So tell me, how are the guitar lessons happening? So, it's kind of, you're right. It's pulling the curtain away, but it's also exposing yourself and opening up to a different form of communication that allows for deeper conversations and better, to be honest with you, better customer relations. So it's weird what a camera can do for business.
I think that's an amazing perspective. And I think it's not only deeper conversations, more meaningful, but you also get into efficiency, because everyone lives on their email, and I'm one of them, email communication. But, it's like having that option that everyone's familiar with, and you have to give, our industry and the folks in it the credit, because, everyone's really, been doing this and they for a while. But now the end customer adoption, Zoom going from 10 million daily active users to over 300 million daily active users within a couple months. And that was starting in December. Now here we are in August at those numbers. And so it does drive that. But I think it's also about efficiency too. I mean, how much more efficient, in traditional form is, if you're getting questions on email, how much, you could send 10 emails for a 5-10 minute phone call. Mm-hmm. And then I think the video call adds in that extra layer that you're talking about too, that deeper layer, but while maintaining that efficiency, using the tools at hand. There's so many good things about it. And I think it's just beneficial all around as far as just efficiency too. That's a big thing.
Efficiency is great. And there's a lot of arguments about, how you can be more efficient in business processes. Arguments meaning debate. Nobody's literally arguing. But a couple years ago, we, Starin, handed out the book, Death by Meeting, right? Too many meetings could be bad. A lot of meetings could be just answered with a couple text messages and an email, to be honest with you. But you're right. You turn on your call, you turn on your, you get together in a call, you book 15, 20 minutes, you can get it done. The check-ins, via Zoom are very simple, whether you turn your camera on or turn it off, but it's just that much more simple. It's not, oh, what number are you? What's the conference extension? It just goes and it just flows. It's just part of our workday. And maybe it's unfair for us to sit here and say, oh, it's just so easy, because for us, it's adopted into our workflows. So we kind of just go with it and we're just kind of used to how it works. But the integration into Outlook and all that, that's a given. Everybody has that. It's just the one button press, simplicity of it makes it really, really, really simple. So man, I appreciate that, that you went down that road of efficiency, because a lot of people forget the whole reason why you're on video, right? And don't tell me that it's saving me it's cost saving me on the cost of a flight to here and the time out. Dude, that's been proven with video conferencing for decades. Now, how do we make it even more efficient? Like, how do we add a little bit more oil to the machine that makes it just operate that much smoother, right? It's a word that our president in Bobby likes to use. It's very agile. It's made us very agile. It makes us nimble. It allows us to do different things at the same time and not have to. We can cut out a lot of dead time out of our day and just keep moving and processing like a well-oiled machine. So it's just a matter of adaptation. I think people can get into it, and I encourage people to take a look at not just the video, but the features that Zoom brings to the table. So, and I thank you for teaching me a bunch of those. I was even taught a new trick recently for an AV happy hour about scheduling. And when you schedule these meetings, go ahead and do that, and scheduling it out so people register for the meeting, so I don't have to send out the password. It was mind-blowing. I did not know that it was part of the Zoom feature set. So I have people signing up and I'm approving them, and they're coming into the AV happy hour, and I have 50 people approved, and it made my life easier as opposed to sending out 1,000 emails and with passwords and forgetting the wrong password and this, that, and the other thing. It was awesome. So I talk too much. This is about you, not about me, man.
Let's get excited about the efficiency aspect, man. That's okay.
Dude, anything that makes my life easier is going to win, and that's what people forget. So my first question to you, it's a very simple one, because we've talked shop, right? We got that out of the way. That's the part of the Rebels and Flux thing. The reason why you are sitting there, the reason why you are a CI 40 under 40 award winner is because you do things a little differently. But what we want to know on Rebels and Flux is what makes you Nic Burton. So I've asked a couple questions to previous guests that kind of supposed to throw them off, but I got some here in my hand. I am dying to whip them out. They're not going to be normal. They may be a little scary, so you may want to tighten your belt and get out some tissues, but here we go. My first question is to you. What is the most used app on your phone in this whole COVID thing? You don't necessarily have to tell me that it's Outlook. That's a given. What is something that Nic Burton pops open his phone, and it's typically one of the first apps? And I will tell you mine after you tell me yours.
This one's actually pretty easy to answer. Keep aside from Zoom, Outlook, all of that, but because I'm a huge Zoom app user on my phone. But DoorDash, man, DoorDash.
DoorDash has taken over like as your number one app.
I'd say that's pretty efficiently used throughout the week. Like, having a 1-year-old, and my wife also works full time, and she's at home as well. But there's just a lot of those nights that we don't really feel like doing much, and we don't want to go out. We like to go out to eat, so that's been I'd say the DoorDash app has definitely been used quite a bit.
I miss going out to eat, and I used to use Open Table a lot to book tables. Obviously, I don't use Open Table. As a matter of fact, Open Table's in my travel little subfolder that I have on my phone, where I would have Open Table. I'd have my United app, my Uber, my Lyft, all the apps that I would typically just need to click on that folder to get into. Travel's out. So guess what? Those are not my most used. My Hilton app, my Marriott app, they've sat collecting dust.
Likewise. Aside from Netflix and obviously those are kind of your dailies things, but I'd say DoorDash would be like that kind of that app that you wouldn't really use all that often, that has been used often here at the Burton House.
Would it be any shocker that mine is Twitter and LinkedIn?
That would not be a shock. I'm a big LinkedIn guy, though. I like LinkedIn. I'm not all that vocal, but for those that connect with me, I do pay attention, and I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit. It's kind of like my first go-to app in the morning, and
I'm basically gonna I'm gonna go down the road. If I've been using more of my outside of the Twitter and LinkedIn and the social stuff, I do use like almost like a SoundCloud app to identify music. If it's playing in the background, I'm like, wait a minute, what song is this? And I'm hearing it coming from whatever. I use that. I use Spotify a lot as well. Been picking up a lot on obviously music as I try to get more active and take daily walks and get out of sitting in a chair for 12, 13 hours a day. So Spotify has been something I've been using a lot. Obviously some of the fitness apps like the Samsung Health that's connected to my watch. I love the wearable stuff. I also have used Spotify as part of podcasts. So a big part of me being locked in has been listening to podcasts and learning something new. And I typically go to the podcasts apps on Spotify to learn something outside of AV, not necessarily technical, because when I'm sitting in front of my computer, it goes down that road. But YouTube has been another massive time suck for me. I'll spend hours after hours learning, about, for me, my latest is, trying to figure out how to use a DSLR camera. So I've been putting a lot of time and effort into understanding apertures and f-stops and this, that, and the other thing, simply because I just want to become, again, going back to that word that I like of efficiency, I want to become more efficient as a content creator. So if I'm out and I'm doing, a show or going to an Infocom or a regional show, I can pull out my camera and get a, quality picture. Right now I'm hurting with that. I can't, here's Barco puts out ClickShare Conference, and I went to one event. I got a handful of pictures and they were under some like weird pink lighting. And I don't have any natural pictures of the ClickShare in action for some of the stuff that I'm looking to do. And obviously we are a Barco ClickShare distributor. So I'm looking for everything. I'm trying to Photoshop half the, get the pink tones out of the color, and every picture I'm doing is pretty much submitting it as black and white. But I want to become a more efficient content creator. So for that, I have spent countless hours at YouTube University trying to get a degree in all that. So it's the best way to find out.
I mean, it's a resource. I mean, I've learned to do so many things on YouTube, and I subscribe to a lot. I like to, that's a good downtime app for sure. Spotify, huge on Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
Also been getting into Tidal a little bit if you're looking for
the high fidelity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I enjoy my headphones and DACs and all that stuff. So
okay, you qualify as an AV nerd, man. That's cool. I get it.
Hey,
So when you were on the road, tell me what your favorite cuisine is. Because when you're on the road, it's the toughest, right? I mean, burgers and hot dogs are probably the simplest, but I'm sure if you have some time to yourself, what would you go looking for? What is your favorite type of cuisine?
Oh, good question. I think you're right. I mean, it's hard. It's always hard when you're on the road. And I try to do that whole just American, the quick fast food stuff, So when I'm out and about, and I'm usually looking for like Greek food.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that's
weird? You want some hummus and some pitas?
Yeah, I started it. I never really was into it. I used to live next to this back when I was still in school, finishing school. I was living in Broad Ripple. It's a small town next to Butler University in Indianapolis, and kind of all the bars and lots of restaurants, things like that.
College town, basic college town.
Got it. So there was this Sam's Euros place across from my apartment, and that was where I kind of first got my taste of Greek food. And then I as I've just kind of progressed, it's just something I crave every now and then, especially when I'm on the road looking for different Greek spots. So I'll do that.
You got to come visit me on the East Coast, because you don't necessarily need a Greek restaurant in New Jersey and New York. You just need in New Jersey, especially, you just hit up a diner, and every diner is owned by Greek folks. Well, at least it seems that way. And, you can always get a good hero, or gyro, depends on how you pronounce it. You can get one at any time, any day. They always got the meat on the stick kind of spinning in the background. So I get it, man. I did not expect that. I expected, it's Italian food or maybe fried chicken. But since you're from the Midwest, it could be you could be a meat and potatoes guy.
Traditionally, I am. I'm pretty straightforward, but
I asked the question, cuisine, dude. You answered it correctly.
Hey, that's just kind of it's like been a newer thing over the past couple of years. Like this, even my wife's been like, because I'll suggest Greek quite a bit here now that we're speaking of DoorDash, and she's like, she's into it, but it was a little bit of a surprise to her too. So you're not
awesome. Cool. All right. Next question. What is the last, series or thing or movie that you binge watched?
Oh, so the last two, we just did binge watching Imposters on, I believe it's on Netflix. It's a Bravo series.
Okay.
Moved over to Netflix. So we binge watched the 2 seasons that has. It's pretty cool. It was definitely one of those like binge worthy. Both seasons were there. I think my wife and I finished it in a couple weeks. It's kind of like about con artists and things like that. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, that and then Formula One Drive to Survive. I binge watched that as soon as it released.
All right, I'm going to take a shot at some random thing, and you just tell me whether answer as best as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Are you more of a Sopranos guy or a Game of Thrones person?
This is bad because I'm neither.
Really. I knew it, dude. I absolutely knew it because I knew that is a particular, like, you're either one or the other, or if you're both, that means you're like an HBO head. And when the minute you didn't say that you binge watched some like HBO series, I knew for a fact that you were going to go down that road. That is shocking. I'm sure people are going, he never watched one or the other. Dear God.
I haven't. I just, I'm just not into. I don't get to watching all that much. I'm more of a. I'm really a nerd. I watch a lot of History Channel stuff. I watch documentaries. I just never got into. I mean, trust me. I still to this day catch flack, especially on the Game of Thrones. I think Sopranos is far enough out to where I don't. That's not a question that we get. But even my wife and I will get the question about Game of Thrones and. That's
it. You can't talk about it at a party, dude. But you don't know what you don't know. I'll be honest with you. I watched Sopranos when it was in full force on HBO, and then I had to binge watch like 6 seasons.
Yeah.
However many seasons Game of Thrones is, I had to catch up to the final season because I'd never watched it before, and it was I didn't have HBO. I didn't know what I was missing. People are like, oh, it's so good. And meanwhile, I'm watching The Walking Dead, and I'm like, this show's great. And they're like, you got to check out Game of Thrones. You kind of like it. It's kind of cool. It's power play. I'm like, whatever. Then I got a season, 2 seasons into it, and then I had to watch all 6. And I think I did it over the course of, months of just trying to get off, stop what I'm doing and watch 2-3 episodes. And I absolutely love now. I kind of love the whole binge mindset because I got to see Ozark on Netflix, which is a great show. But I don't know if I would have enjoyed Ozark watching it once a week as opposed to let me watch a whole season over one weekend, another whole season over another weekend, and it really just got me up to up to date. And now I'm kind of sad that it's kind of gone. So it's weird because as a 40-something, this whole binging thing is a very weird thing. Like my kids don't watch live TV. They're all about just catching it and binging it and watching it they have other ways of doing things. Like, I don't even know if my kids know. If I was to tell my kids to put on Fox on my TV, I don't think they'd be able to find it. They would have to press the button and say, whatever Channel 5 or Fox is, right? Bizarre.
I'll even skip, even on the DVR, like we'll skip a week just so we have 2 episodes to watch the next week. Cause it's just, you're getting so used to that.
You'll dedicate an hour and a half. It's like movies. Like I'll watch movies. I used to watch movies more than I watch TV shows. And then I think through this whole lockdown and COVID and obviously traveling, when we were allowed to travel, I would just, find a series and grind it, download it on my phone or so I'd have something to see on the airplane or something as I was going between places. But very, very interesting, man. That's a different way to take a look at.
I'm sure I'm going to cheat for that.
I'm sure somebody's going to ding you on that, and you're going to lose points on this interview because of that. What was the last concert that you saw live? Obviously, our live events industry is taking a beating right now with obviously with conferences and shows and sporting events. Everything's kind of stopped for the most part. What was the last? I say concert. If it's not concert, give me the last sporting event that you saw live and in person.
Concert-wise, I think that was Tyler Childers here at the Vogue in Indy, which is a really cool, lot of history. Tyler Childers is, I've been listening to him for a while, but he's got a lot of ties into like Sturgill Simpson and kind of that group, really Kentucky country bluegrass kind of style. He's got some songs out now, so people will probably recognize that name. He's got some songs that play on I hear him on Sirius.
You're taking some deep cuts right now, man. I'm sure that people will enjoy hearing.
Yeah.
Maybe they haven't heard. Go on.
Yeah, my brother's he lives in Fort Collins, so he came into town, and I bought tickets for him, my dad, and myself, and we went to see Tyler Childers, and I'm like, lifelong fan. I really like his style. He's got I play acoustic guitar a little bit. I dabble. I have since I was young, but never got too good at it. But he just has that. He's good at playing with other musicians. He's awesome, just him and the guitar. It was a really big treat that night because he actually had Sturgill Simpson's drummer there. So there were two, the Tyler Childers band drummer and then Sturgill's drummer, and they were playing, simultaneously, which was really freaking cool to see like that up close and at the Vogue too, which is, I've got long ties there. So
now that you brought it up, now I want to ask, tell me about this Indianapolis music scene. I've heard about this. My former video directors that were with the New York Giants back in the day loved going to Indy, and it was one of the few places that they would actually bring their guitars with them because they loved the Indy scene.
Yeah.
Tell me about this Indianapolis music scene, or maybe some of the viewers don't know about what the music scene is in Indy.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty unique. I mean, you've got some pretty unique places. I guess that's like unique venues. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the one that most know, formerly Deer Creek, but Verizon, out in Noblesville, we're all, Dave Matthews comes to town for 2 nights and yada, yada. Lots of big venue. And then you've got, I think the more unique aspects like that Vogue, right? The Vogue is cool. I mean, you'll see like Tyler Childers, for instance, was there. You'll see Galactic come play there, which is like incredible. Or you can even go see like Here Come the Mummies, mm-hmm. which if no one's ever seen a Here Come the Mummy show, it's a really cool. What they do is take a lot of famous or getting to be famous artists, and they're all dressed up, and I'm talking like full on, Hollywood mummified mm-hmm. costumes. So you don't know who they are. But it's a really cool show to see. And then you've got places like the Slippery Noodle downtown, which is a very famous old blues bar. So you can always, go to a Colts game and then pop into the Noodle afterwards and get some really good blues going. So there's a lot of different aspects. Like in Indiana, we're kind of on that like border of, there's a lot of country here. You can probably hear a little twang in my voice. I get, especially my buddies from the East Coast, I always get, because I feel like I talk completely not.
You go in and out of it, man. It's all right.
Yeah. So, but it's cool because there is, it's nothing like Austin or anything like that, but there is a nice little music scene. That town Broad Ripple I mentioned, there's always live bands playing there. The Noodle's one of my favorite places. If you visit Indianapolis, it's like if you're just here for a weekend, the Slippery Noodle's like a must. It's an old haunted, bar from, I think it's been around since early 1900s. It's been around for a long time. So
awesome, man. I'll take it. That's some great that's some great tips there, man. So there is validity to these rumors of like I said, my old video directors used to go there and say, you won't understand until you go there, but there's a great little, music scene there. We'd love going, and they would go in every so often or every year for the NFL, not the rookie camp, but where the combines was in Indy. So they would come in for that, and they were usually there for about a week or so at the combine filming for their respective teams. And when they were there, they would bring their instruments, or they were guitar players at the time, and they loved. That was the one thing that stuck in my head, because I was like, Indy. I'm like, I know Nashville, I know Austin, LA.
But we're only 4 hours from Nashville, and we're a great host city. That's the combines here. We've got Lucas Oil, beautiful downtown. We've got Mass Avenue. I mean, it's definitely got a nice platform for that. And I think, that's part of like the event hosting stuff. That in Final Four, you've got, combine, you've got, when you've got some, then you've got Verizon. It's a, that's a staple venue, that they pack thousands of people to. So
how has, and I don't know how deep you are involved in or know of it, but how has obviously COVID and the whole lockdown thing, how's it impacted? If it's a host city, I would assume that similar to Vegas and Orlando and New Orleans, which do host a lot of conventions and shows, and that's kind of like they live on that income. How has it affected the town with the cutting down of events and obviously all that sort of stuff?
It's definitely cut it, quite a bit. I mean, you there's a lot of positivity there. I mean, we did open back up a bit, but you're just kind of seeing that, that relief kind of turn back into a little bit more of concern, especially these days with the numbers ticking up. But it's definitely impacted. I think it's impacting all of these, anything live event. I mean, you got to put it in that category of these folks are impacted, and these folks need help getting back to where they need to be financially. I mean, I don't think there's any way around it. I mean, I did see that they hosted the Mecum Auto auction. I mean, they're trying, everyone's trying to do what they can, but it's, in the end, I mean,
you still need bodies, man. You still need people.
Yeah, and Lucas Oil is going to remain empty until we have Victory Field downtown, which is one of the coolest places to watch a baseball game on, in my opinion. The Indianapolis Indians play there, and yeah, I mean it's so it's definitely impacted. I think folks are venturing out a bit, but as far as the live events, the hosting side, we're just as impacted as everybody else.
Wow, that's crazy, man. So on a personal note, what was the best piece of advice that you ever got? Whether it's let's stick with the business theme. What was the best advice that, now you've mentioned, you rattled off a few mentors earlier on in our discussion, but what was the best piece of advice you got from any of them? Like one that's kind of stuck out on you, or maybe you have tattooed on your back. I wouldn't know, but that's tough. I'll kind of take it back from like the business side, but it's been a big part of how I just operate, since I was young. My dad would always, I had The Road Less Traveled, that book, just in front of me since I was a pretty young guy. So I the first line of that book, life is difficult. I don't mean that as advice, but it's just something that has always helped me. You expect it.
Yeah. Well, it's just, and then, the quote that Bill Mullins mentioned to me a couple of times of, it's going to be, it's up to me. It's like, I think that's just helped with more of a mindset thing. I've had so much great advice from so many people. It's hard to kind of narrow that down to like, hey, what's my motto? But really, if you look at The Road Less Traveled, that book in its entirety, that's been a lot of where I've, where my mind is and how
it brings in your head, man. Just when you think that, hey, I got this figured out and I'm going to go down this path, going to the road less traveled obviously is more of the journey and the experience that you possibly or could want or need more so than just the easy way, because the easy way, everybody else has probably gone down that road and been there, done that. So
yeah, and
agree, and I see it.
The other, I guess, from an old colleague and previous someone I used to report to, I think one of the best pieces of advice I got was no matter how smart you are, no matter what you have as far as brain power, relationships are key, and it's like no matter what anyone tells you, always know that relationships are so key. And that's been and I'm a relationship kind of guy, so it kind of comes naturally, but that's been that's held true throughout, especially through my professional career, my time at Starin. It's just been that foundation. It's just built on great relationships, both internally at Starin and externally with customers and partners.
Well, one of the big differences between me and you is that I'm considered the old guy. You're the new guy. I'm quite okay with that. I have experience. You have different experiences. But one of the things that I would like to hear, because being the middle-aged guy who's had 20 plus years in this business now, me giving advice to a young person would be one thing. But for you, again, young 40 under 40 person, what is the best advice that you would, or what would you say to somebody who is entering our industry right now? What kind of advice would you give them? Would you tell them to go through the same things you did, start at the bottom? Would you tell them to, aim high and you got a degree, so go, shoot for the highest level that you can? Or, would you go down a different route? And the reason why I'm asking a young guy to give the advice is because sometimes young people connect better with young people and they'll listen. So what kind of advice would Nic Burton give to a 20-something college grad ready to enter or considering to enter the AV world?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, it's hard to say like start high or low. I'd say my advice is to find a company that you can believe in and that feels the same way about you. I know that might sound generic, but it's really not. You find something that you truly like to do. Find a company that, maybe specializes in a lot of different categories. Is there a specialty there for you? I think that's really important as far as like not looking at it, well, if I go to this company A, which is going to give me this position up here, or company B, which I like more, is going to give me this position down here. You have to kind of take into consideration what's going to be best for you and have foresight. I think that's a lot. One of the biggest pieces of advice I can give is just to have foresight. Look 30
term.
Yeah. Look a year down the line, look 5 years down the line. I know it's tough because a lot of, these days people change positions, change companies a lot, but focus on the now, and then you focus, and then also with some foresight as you progress. And when you get into something that you really like, typically it's amazing how it works because the money, the title, all that seems to come along with that, and it'll work itself out. So that'd be my biggest piece of advice. And I think the other one is just to persevere. The AV industry is very, very evolutionary. It's evolving quite a bit. There's always different technologies. There's different things. There's different players. There's those players have been around for a long time. There's new players. There's, look what Zoom's done in under a decade. It's just very, it keeps you on your toes quite a bit. So persevering through that is a big thing.
That's awesome. So for those Gen Xers that want that advice translated, what he is saying is hang tough, get your new kids on the block thing going. Hang in there and you'll be fine. Nic, I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate that little bit of advice there, because that actually, is solid advice for anybody coming into the industry, and an industry that's constantly evolving, constantly changing. You, sir, are a great example of, what 5-year can do and a 5-year plan, because you've hit your 5-year plan, or what if you set out to do a 5-year plan, but here you are 5 years after entering this industry, and you've now won awards. You are leading a group within Starin and part of the Midwich company that is super important to the future of our business, and obviously unified communications and everything that we are doing in the Zoom platform is super important. And I couldn't think of a better person to be representing or being the face of that right now, because not only do you know the product, you live with it, and that is a major, major part of what we do, is that we actually, as a company, for lack of a better term, and I'm certain people are gonna be like, man, I wish Neto hadn't said that, but we do eat our own dog food, and the dog food that we're providing here is good for us. It's good for everybody. We live by it, and we work with it, and we play with it, and we have scars from it, and we've learned from it, which is the most important part, as opposed to just having a box sitting on a shelf and we never look at it or opened up what is in there, and it's not a mystery to us. So thank you, sir. I appreciate you taking the time, hanging out with me, being part of now the Rebels and Flux crew that I have interviewed over the last year, now on season 2, I guess I would call this, if you want to make it sound like an episodic show. Thank you, sir, for coming on the show. I appreciate it. If the viewers of this show would like to find out more about you, where can they find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, certainly. LinkedIn is really my favorite place for me. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Nic, Nic Burton, Burton, at Starin. And then you can always email if you want to speak through a problem or talk to myself or my team directly, teamzoom@starin.biz gets a hold of all of us. So those are really the 2 best places.
Awesome. Well, I thank you for taking the time and sitting down with me, and we'll get to do some questions, get to know a little bit about you and what makes you tick and what makes you a little bit different that you got that nomination. And congratulations again. My name is Chris Neto. I host this crazy show called Rebels and Flux for Starin. Starin is the company that is my employer. They're the people that actually are sponsoring the show. Not only that, but Mr. Burton is with me on the Starin journey as well. We are part of the Midwich group. You can find out more about Starin at starin.biz. That's starin.biz. You can find out more about me. I'm on LinkedIn. Hit me up, Christopher Neto, CTS. Sounds big, sounds like a lot of names, but I just go by my first formal name, Christopher Neto, CTS. On Twitter, you can find me at Chris_Neto. And you can find out more about Starin at Starin_MKG on the Twitters. And if you like this video, hit the like, hit the subscribe. We'd be more than happy to, we'd appreciate that. And we would love to continue doing this sort of stuff, but that requires you guys to go ahead and give us a little like and subscribe. So thank you so much for taking the time. This has been Rebels and Flux.